Good morning, everyone. Good morning, welcome. Happy Mother's Day. Thank you, Enrique, for the opening message. It was a great message, actually a message that fits right into our talk for today. But we don't like to start our meetings without taking a minute and greeting each other. So please stand up. Do you know the person who is sitting next to you? Say good morning. If you know it, look for someone who you don't know. Introduce yourself. Yes. So let's say hi. It's very nice to have you. All right. Wonderful, wonderful. Let me tell you something. It's a challenge for me, year after year, speak about Mother's Day. Not because it's a difficult topic, but because every year I ask myself, what can I say different than the year before and the year before and the year before? So, and I don't know why, for some reason I end up with this day's topic. But so today, you know, I wake up this morning and my WhatsApp groups, individuals, messages, it's even hard to be able to open them all, listen to all the videos and watch all the messages, and I respond very briefly. I try to respond to all of them very briefly because there are many, and I'm blessed to receive so many different messages. But I was thinking, you know, looking at the content of the messages, and it's very like emotional. You know, some videos, like I received one this morning that is about the word mother. It's the most used word in the entire world. And so it shows all these different kids saying mom in many different circumstances. Like you're in the shower and you need a towel, mom, right? And then it was like super, super cute. But my lecture is not cute. That's my point. So I couldn't come up with anything very like, you know, mellow or sentimental. And so there's none of that in here. Basically, and plus, you know, in our days today, as we feel that the roles of mother and father are converging more and more, there's less and less of a distinction that's based on gender and, you know, what one should be doing and the other, you know. So I wanted to say something about parenting in general, you know. So to celebrate Mother's Day, I thought that would be a good idea to revisit what parenting is about, right? So when we first get together and with a partner, with a husband, a wife, whatever, you know, under the more like traditional circumstances, and then at some point you decide I'm gonna have a child, the couple decides it's gonna have a child, what goes in our minds? Are we thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm just signing up for this incredible divine mission to make the world a better place? Is that a common association when you decide to be a mom and a dad? Not necessarily. Do you think about all the hardship that you're going to endure at that very moment? No, you don't necessarily. So we think about Hollywood and like the wonderful families in the movies of Hollywood and the wonderful feelings and joy of being a mom and of being a dad or parenting in some way, shape or form. So today I hope that we leave here all that is fine and all that is truly part of being a mother, parenting or having a child in your life in any way, shape or form. And it can be a little child, can be you know, young adults. This Friday I had 20 of my students at my house who are graduating on Wednesday. And they came back after 9 months of internships, and it's going to be my last graduation since I was a full-time professor. So I brought them to my house, and we ate and we talked, and at the very end we sat down, we watched a video of their class that they put together, and then we went around, and each one of us, I invite each one of them to say something that was meaningful to them, you know. So in that sense, it was very good, because they all got very emotional when they spoke about their feelings, and I gave them some words. So they are also my children. So whether you have children or not, right? There's always people that we influence in our lives, and we, each one of us, have a mission. So I want to emphasize the importance of our mission. Parenthood, taking care of someone, the children are in our lives. We all have a mission, particularly parents, and the gospel talks about this very, very specifically. Parenthood is a mission that's given to each one of us who receive children in our house to perform. Is a divine duty, all right? So I'm gonna open with this statement by Mandela, when he says that education is the most powerful weapon we can use to change the world. So often we talk about the difficult, painful, and sometimes appears to be hopeless situation of the world that we live in, especially when we focus in politics, no matter which country you are talking about, right? And a lot of times people ask me, how can we change this? How can we change the world to a better place? And the only way that we can change the world to a better place is by educating the new generations, is by making a positive influence, so that tomorrow the politicians who are in power have different ethics, different principles, and different values, so that the world can be transformed. We're not going to transform the world with weapons, with violence, with hostility, but with education is the most powerful, important tool that we have in our hands. And when I say education, am I talking about intellectual knowledge? No. That is important, yes, but it's secondary, because I can give you all the knowledge. You don't need a professor this day to know everything. You can Google it. You can go on the internet and learn how to make a bomb. So the issue is not about intellectual education, it's giving our children and our youth the values, the ethics, so that they can guide their intellectual knowledge to goodness and to love, so that the world will be transformed. And so, if we think about this, we have, all of us adults in this room, an incredible mission. And we need to think, what kind of influence and how are we relating with the children and the young people who are in our lives, whether they are grandchildren, our nephews, nieces, our own children. Are we educating them to be good persons, right? So that they can, so we have a responsibility. God expects from us to do this job, because that is the way that the world will be changed. So with that, we are going to go to two parts today. One is we're going to try to answer some of these questions. We're going to start from a broader perspective and talk about the role of family, and then zoom in into parents' duties. And we're going to talk a little bit about education, okay? And then we're going to look at some educational principles from early Christianity. We're going to look at Jesus, the only title from all that were attributed to him that he actually took ownership for was the title of master. He said, I am the master, right? So what are the principles that he used to teach, so that we can absorb those principles into our own ways of relating to the children and to the youth? All right, so here are the books that I used for this presentation. In English, we have today the book After the Storm and Family Constellation, both by the Spirit Suzana Simões. Also, Lessons for Happiness, that one has not been translated yet, by the Spirit Emmanuel, the book Taught in Life, and by Sandra Borba, which is one of the leaders in the work of children and youth education in Brazil, works very close to the Spiritus Federation in Brazil. Educational Reflections Under the Light of the Gospel. And in this book is where the second part comes from, which is a very, very good book, an outstanding book for the ones who do the work in Portuguese. All right. So what is the role of family in society, right? So how the formation of the disintegration of family would affect our society? Do we need to have families? Are families important? Are they key for the progress? So the spirits tell us that families are absolutely essential. And why are they so essential, right? And so Joana de Angelis in the book After the Storm, she's gonna say, the family is a blessed spiritual and moral school. It is the sacred workshop where characters are polished, a superior laboratory filtering sentiments, structuring aspirations, and refining ideals. Here, old blemishes are transformed into precious possibilities for the accomplishment of useful work. The home, therefore, when visited by pain of transformation of its members, is a purifying furnace where the firm bases of humanity are always forged. So it's a very long explanation, but if you pay attention, she defines family in 3 different ways: a school, a workshop, and a purifying furnace. Okay? So the family is that environment that is not a random occurrence. We come together with spirits that we have a relationship with, or sometimes a new spirit joins that family with a purpose. It's very easy to love all of you who I see on Sundays, and then I go back to my house, right? It's very easy. You come here, everybody looks good, everybody looks beautiful, everybody shower, and everybody comes in smiling and ready to share love. But then none of you is at my house when I come in at the end of the day after a stressful day, not looking so pretty and so happy and all of those things. So there is where we have the chance to do this deeper work of relating, of forgiving, of being patient, right? And as we work there, as we learn and we do our daily workshops, it gets us ready to go out into society and be able to offer society a little bit more from ourselves, from the learning and from the workshop experience that we have in our family. And of course, there is a lot of struggles. The closer you live with people, the more intimate you are with someone, the more you experience conflicts and struggles, because none of us is an angel. And so we have to put up with each other's shortcomings and darkness and conflicts and everything else, right? But as we go through these conflicts and we overcome them, that's how we polish our souls. So the family has all these characteristics. It does all of these, at all these levels. It works and prepares the soul to go out and make a contribution in society. So it's very important. And there are some favorable spiritual conditions for the education of the new soul. So the children who come into our families. The first one is, what do parents represent to the little children, right? So when the little children look at their parents, who they see? God, right? So for the little child, the parent is the all-powerful, the whole truth, right? Is all love, so it's God. So it's a very favorable environment for us. We have an incredible responsibility, because whatever we say, whatever we'll do, that child is going to take us the truth and is going to integrate in his or her psychology. Now, the other thing that Joana de Angelis Emmanuel in the book Thought and Life tells us is this: the children entrusted to our care on earth bring a completely new neurocerebral structure that is like a photographic camera ready to gather impressions. The lens, which collects images to project onto the film, is represented in the child's mind as a new mirror. The lens of the soul is comprised of vision, observation, attention, and meditation. The children absorb the reflexes of the minds around them, which are then registered within and become their basic element of conduct. They are like delicate pieces of living clay in the potter's hand. So you have someone that's looking up to you for guidance, for direction, and you have this brand new nervous system that's ready. It's ready. The synapses are being formed. New connections are being formed. And the more rich the environment is, the stronger the connections are, the deeper the learning is as well. So it's blank for that moment. It's ready to absorb. They are looking, they are observing, they are paying attention to the things that we are doing, and they are making synapses. They're learning, they're absorbing all this information, and they are building new connections within themselves. So I love this, delicate pieces of living clay in the potter's hand. So again, it speaks to the immensity of our responsibility in having those little souls come into our lives. And what is then our duty? The most important duty of parents reaching the point of self-sacrifice is to love and care for the children assigned to them by the holy ways of reincarnation. They are to educate them, placing their souls the seed of faith and responsibility and the need to seek to elevate themselves and be happy. All right, so 3 things that Joana de Angelis is telling us here that it is our duty. What are they? Love, care, and educate. So our responsibility is to love our children, to care for them, to attend to their needs, and also to educate them. Now, when they're little, it's so easy to love and to care for them. Every time I meet someone whose kids are in their teenager years, I say to them, my kids are in that very wonderful phase. When we are walking on the street, they hold on to my hand spontaneously. They come to my lap without me asking, right? And they made beautiful Mother's Day cards, and they prepare breakfast for us this morning. And so everything is wonderful, so easy to love them. They're so lovable, right? But they will grow, and they will go through the natural phase of separating and saying, I love you, but I'm not you, and I'm my own person. And that's healthy, and that's necessary, right? But the question is, can we love them through those moments? I remember the day that I was in court finalizing the adoption of Tachi, and the judge looked at me and she said, you know, there's no way back. Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure? Because the teenager years will come. I'm telling you, there's no way back. Do you really want to do this? Right? So that's what it is about, right? So are you willing to educate? Because when it comes to education, that means work. That means work. One of the biggest problems that we find today is that people want to be parents without the work of parenthood. All right? So to educate a child, to put limits, to speak to them about responsibilities, takes work, a lot of work. And so a lot of people, especially in our culture here, where it's so easy to buy things, right? You please your kids by buying, by giving, but you fail to do the work of education. And this has some very serious consequences for the child, for you in the future, and for society as a whole. So In Thought in Life, Emmanuel says, to treat them as mere tokens of affection is to lead them into grave deceptions. It will render them inadequately prepared for their redemptive struggle. So when you say no to your child and you put limits and you say to them, you're going to use this tablet 30 minutes a day, and they come home and they say, but my friend's parents let me use it all day. And I say to them, that's why they were born to them. You were here with me. It is my responsibility to take care of you. And so what I want you to learn is that I care about the time that I spend with you, and I think that to be able to sit and have dinner without electronics is important because we need to talk to each other. I want to hear what you have to say. And I want to be able to say to you what is going on in my life. Do they like it? No. No. Come in. Do they like it? No. Is it tense? Yes, it's tense a lot of times, right? They get upset, they get moody, they get frustrated. It's work. It's work. But that's what it takes to educate someone. So they're not just tokens of affection, just to take them to the theater, to take them to the beach and have a good time. We need to do the work. Otherwise, they won't be prepared. And so a lot of times we fail to give them the limits and to teach the responsibilities, right? Jake right now is very annoyed. I don't even know what he did, but he needs to make his bed and touch his bed every day for 1 week. So he's super upset about that, right? But we need to prepare them for the future. Take responsibilities. And then Sherry is a little rough sometimes, more than me. So she gave him 2 weeks that he was going to do it. But since he came forward and told the truth about whatever it is that he did, she decreased to 1 week. And she said to him, because you're honest and you're straightforward and you're able to own what happened in your feelings, so she validated his courage and motivated him to be honest and straightforward with whatever he did, which I still don't know what happened. But in any case, okay, so going back to the previous statement, they are to educate them, placing their souls the seeds of faith and responsibility, and they need to seek to elevate themselves and to be happy. So when we think about education from the spiritual perspective, we are not thinking only about giving the intellectual knowledge, which is what we are mostly concerned most of the time, but seeds of faith, responsibility, and to teach them, right, that they, in order to be happy, there is some inner work that needs to be done. So when we're thinking about education, we're thinking about it in a more holistic way. So what is the most efficient education method, right? So when you go to book Family Constellation, we read there, Joana de Angelis tells us that to educate is to offer examples, since the students will more easily reproduce the living lessons presented to them than the theories received. And again, in Lessons for Happiness, she will say the most efficient method of education is the one associated to examples, demonstrating to the child the efficacy and meaning of the parent's actions. The most bizarre experience that I have had as a parent was to observe Tati in particular, to speak to a friend of hers in the way that I speak to her. I was like, oh my God, you know? So you tell your child, right? So don't scream, speak politely, you know, be kind. But then at home, you say to the kid, come on, guys, this happens every day in my life, my house. Guys, because I'm the one who takes them to school, we have 10 minutes to leave the house. I need you to brush your teeth, put your shoes on, right? Get your backpacks ready, and we're gonna leave, okay? and they're like walking around. 30 seconds later, guys, I need you to do this, right? And then by the 4th time, I'm like, guys, so that happens. So I hear Tachi speaking to Jake, being bossy to him in the same way I am with them, right? In the same way, because that's how they learn. It's not what you say to them, the theories, the sermons, see them and blah, 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 blah. They're watching you. They see what you do. You want your child to be able to forgive someone? Have you ever asked them for forgiveness? You have to. You have to. So I go back to them and I say, you know what? I am really sorry for what happened. Because you know what we do? We blame on our children for our loss of control. The loss of control is yours. Own it. So many times I come to them and I say, you know, I lost control. I spoke to you in a way, it has nothing to do with you, okay? I had difficulties in managing the situation, my responsibility. And I wanted to say that I'm sorry, all right? So you model, so your kids learn how to do that. Much more powerful than telling them to forgive is showing them that you can say, I am sorry, and ask them for forgiveness as well. So, and then go on and explain to them, you know, that these behaviors that you're trying to model will make life easier for them. They will be happier. What is the meaning? Why should I behave this way? Why should I say sorry whenever necessary? Because you're going to keep friendships, because you know, life is going to be easier in that way. You're not going to harbor resentment within yourself. And so explore with them the consequences of the behavior. So what is the gist of it? So going back to family constellation, education needs to be committed to the spiritualization of the child, orienting the child to the reality of God, of creation, and of the meaning of human life. It's necessary to educate the child to be, to know, to do, and to relate. This sentence here is very important, right? So we need to focus a lot of times, and I have said this here before, we're very tough on our children as far as their academic achievements, but taking them to the center or to, you know, oh well, not so important, right? And yet, and I'm using the center because he's where we are, but it can be anywhere. Tati today is not here, she's at a church because she wants to sing in the choir. And so, if that is important for her, then we will nurture that, because we will see a little bit about this. Part of education is also spending enough time with the child to recognize what is their potentialities and what, you know, is their tendencies, and nurturing them like the gardener does with a little plant. So she's there. If through music and through the choir she's going to connect with God, beautiful, so be it. So she's there. But you know, we need to invest. Some parents think that, you know, let the child grow, and then when they become teenagers, they can choose for themselves, right? You don't let your child grow, and when they decide if they want to go to school or not. Your role is to give them the basis. When they become teenagers, they will choose whatever pathway they want. They may choose not to believe in God. That's fine. That's their choice. But you, as a parent, have done your job. You provided them with the material that you know it's important and that can help them in life. Once they become adults and responsible and have their free will, they will make a choice. And from that point on, your duty is over in their most important component. Now the relationship is transformed, you're friends, and you're going to continue to walk together with your child. But that phase where they are that flexible clay that can be molded is over. It's over, right? But it is your responsibility to bring them, to give them the tools so that they can know, sure, know, but be the importance of understanding who they are, divine beings that can help build their self-worth, right? The importance of doing, the importance of service, the importance that we are here not to live our lives for ourselves, but we're in a society, we're in a community. We have an obligation. In the Spirit's book, we learned that incarnation has two purposes. One is for us to grow, and the other one is for us to leave this world a better place with our contribution. There is no one that is devoid of resources or anything to give, because it may be a word, it may be a thought, it may be a hug, but I just remember this guy that he's in his 50s and he's one of my clients at work, but he's been a paraplegic for a long time and he's very, very depressed. And he told me this Friday, he said, I don't know if you see me anymore, not you or anyone at the ALF, the assisted living facility where he lives. And so he was implying that he was considering suicide. And I spoke to him in the ways that I could in that moment and in that circumstance. But, you know, he's with me, so I'm talking about him. But I only, I asked him, do you believe in anything? He's like, yeah, I do and I don't. I do and I don't, you know. So it just really stay with me, like, you know, the importance of like giving the tools for our children so that, you know, no matter how difficult life is, they can always find a meaning to life. You know, he's a really nice guy. And I told him, but you're such a nice guy, you know, come here instead of just receiving the therapy. Let's find something useful and meaningful for you to do, so that to see if he can find some meaningful activities and regain the willingness to live and to endure certainly a life of trials, but to do and to relate, right? So this perhaps is one of the most difficult tasks and requires that we know how to relate. If we can only teach our children what we know to do. So in order to teach relation, we need to be able to relate. We need to look at our relationships in our own lives, the quality of them, and how we're relating to one another or in our families. So the broad consequence of education is by educating, we build within a child a new person. It is to work for the peace of society. Wars are not made of weapons. Wars are made by the man who builds weapons. To educate, disarming the child of inferior, competitive, individualist sentiments represents the promotion of domestic peace and the beginning of peace in society. So this goes back to our first slide, right? So wars are not made of weapons, are made of men who build weapons. Go back to that very first statement that I did. So we can give all the intellectual knowledge and power to someone, but the question is, what will he or she do with that? Because the internet, money, all of those things, material, are neutral. They're neutral instruments. They're just material. What makes them good and bad are the minds they're operating behind them and the ways in which they're being utilized by us. So the internet can be a very powerful tool for goodness. If the minds they're operating, they're posting, they're sharing, you're sharing goodness, or sharing constructive, uplifting thoughts and ideas, and not destructive, right? So disarming the child of inferior, competitive, individualist sentiments. So that's the work. The problem here is this. But what if these sentiments are present within us? How can we teach something that we have yet to conquer ourselves? If we're extremely competitive, right? if you're extremely individualist in our approach and the ways that in which we live. So we have a problem. So with this, we close this very first part by saying and emphasizing the importance of our self-education. So if we want to, every single parent wants the best for their children. Every single person wants the best for the nephew, for the... So what is the greatest investment that you can do in order to offer the best to your children? Is invest in yourself. Invest in yourself. You should do your inner work. You should work on your values. You should do your work of spiritualization and enlightenment so that you can be to them an enlightened reference. Someone that they're going to look up as gods, and they're going to see, this is how my parent lives. I see the consequences. I see what it means, you know, and I want that for myself. I want the same. It's funny because I grew up seeing my grandmother and my mother very much involved in the spiritist movement in Brazil. And my grandmother founded a center, and my mom founded a center. And I remember being a little girl and saying to myself, one day I want to found a center too. And that was something that I had in me from seeing them, from seeing the work. And I never thought it was going to happen, but it ended up happening. But so if we put this together, then family is the base of society. Children are fresh clay on the potter's hand. Parents have a mission to spiritually educate their children. Education is most effective through example, and education calls for knowledge from the educator. So those are some of the main points that we talk about. All right? So now in the last 5 minutes, I would like to go over the principles, some of the principles. So the work of inner transformation, it's up for each one of you to do. You know, that's the best inheritance you can leave to your children, is your own inner transformation, okay? But there are a couple things in educating our children, in dealing with the young, whoever it is, some principles that we can integrate into our lives and practice, because they were used and they were part of the ways in which Jesus taught us. So what are they? Human beings are the highest divine investment. We're going to talk about all of them: personal growth, value personal contact, human beings and human experiences as starting points for knowledge. And so let's look at what they mean, each one of these principles. So human beings, missing the S there, are the highest divine investment. So Jesus saw us as a divine investment. And so what does that mean? It means that he believed no matter who you were and where you were in your evolution, that you were worth it. Okay? So we need to approach our children with the same mind frame. And when you think that someone is worth it, you also believe that that person, just like you, has the capacity and the power to transform himself or herself. And the consequence of looking at a human being from this perspective is that he never stops sowing. So there is a time for everything under heaven, right? Our responsibility is for what grows within us. I'm not responsible for what is, or the pace of growth in my child's soul. I'm responsible for throwing the seeds, making the seeds available. Now the work, it's going to happen within her. I'm responsible for the work that's happening within me. But when you believe that every single human being is worth it, and you believe that they have the capacity of growth and inner transformation, is never stop sowing. So that's one of the first principles. A consequence of this first principle is to understand that that spirit will grow And as a parent or as a teacher or as a relative, identify and nurture the potentialities of that soul that may or may not be what you expected. You know, I would love to have, for example, a child that will be a doctor of something. And my child wants to, I don't know, paint, right? That can be very challenging sometimes because we have a tendency to want our children to be a reflection of us. But what is their potentialities? Provide opportunities to experience self-worth. No one wants to see their child, their children struggling. But sometimes, and then a lot of parents, they try to remove the struggles. But if you remove the struggle, you're telling that child that he or she does not have the capacity to overcome. So they grow up feeling that they are unable. So the struggle is necessarily, and you work with them to overcome the obstacles so that they can feel that they are powerful, they are worthy, and they can do it. And we work as gardeners, so that's what Jesus did, you know, giving a good balance between freedom and responsibility. Okay? I don't have time to go a little deeper into this, but I just want to run by it. I love this one. I think this is very pertinent to today's day. Value personal contact. So Jesus, he did not teach from a exclusive school in his time. Where was he teaching? Right there, he was living with the disciples. He fished with them. He dined with them. He went to parties with them. He visited the temple on several occasions. So why is this so pertinent to today? Because today's parents are very, very preoccupied with working. And a lot of the time, the children are delegated to the care of others. And so you miss an incredible opportunity. There's something funny. So I get my nails done every Saturday because if I don't do it, they go away, they disappear. So I get them done every Saturday at 8:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. Jake now has a game every Saturday at 9 o'clock until next week. So yesterday, the woman canceled on me and he looked at me, he said, "Oh Mom, so you're gonna be there for the first time for my entire game?" I was like, "Yes, Jakey, and for next week I'm going to schedule for later so I can be there for your entire game." They want you there. Are you there for them? You know, I thought, well, I'm there. I'm going to the game. I'm just coming late. Well, that's apparently wasn't enough, right? So it's important. It's important to be there, to participate in the life of your child, to go to the presentations, you know, to be there for them and to be able to know what they're thinking, what they're feeling, to partake in their growth. So a lot of the teaching was done at those times. At those times, the times that they were there, right? That Jesus was there with them in these day-to-day circumstances. Now, human beings and human experiences are starting points for knowledge. So who is the person listening to him? So the way that he taught is he used the cultural experience of the crowd. He paid attention on the person's readiness to learn and the possibilities of growth. He used a lot of the culture of the time in order to teach. So I cannot talk to my kids about instruments or, you know, things from the past. I need to use what they are used to today, the technology, you know. So if I want to speak to them, you know, I need to learn what are the new apps, what are, you know, what's going on, what they're listening to, you know. In my house, I always listen to Brazilian music. If you ask me one music in English, I could not tell you. Now I can. I learned many of them, because I want to know what they're listening to, and I want to be able to share with them, and you know, whether I like it or not, that's where they are, and I want to be there with them. So, holistic view of humans. This is important. So education does not happen at intellectual level, but reaches the conscience of the student, right? So we're teaching things, but make them think about it. So what does that mean? You know, and so like Jesus did with the Pharisee, he asked, so what's the meaning of salvation? He highlighted the faith of the centurion. He, with Zacchaeus, who was on the top of the tree, you know, he helped him to make a decision, use his free will. So it's to teach intellectually, but also help them to broaden their thinking. And what are the consequences? What does that mean? And explore deeper meanings with them. Always show the relation between practice and theory. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. I will not know that you are my disciple because you do beautiful lectures about love. You know that you are my disciple because I see you forgiving, I see your tolerance, I see you working on getting along with others, I see your respect for differences. That's how I know that you are my disciple. So it's not enough to say, I want to see it. And finally, the transcendental meaning of human experience. So in all times when we are teaching our kids, we have to bring them the awareness that we are learning for the present moment, but we're learning for eternity, right? We're immortal beings. So it's not only for the present moment. So when Jesus says, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Or when he says, why do you ask me about what is good? Jesus replied, there's only one who is good. If you want to enter life, keep the commandments. So why are we doing all these things? It's for the present moment, yes, but much more. Much more. We are looking to build happiness today and tomorrow. So going back to the 7 principles, I would say that when Jesus taught, he taught there's some of these principles that I think we can bring to our lives as we deal with our children, which is see them for who they are, divine beings, right? And they're worth of our time, they're worth of our investment, and be with them and talk to them way beyond the intellect, but speak to their conscience and prepare them to live as immortal spirits. And in this way, we will be contributing with Mandela's thought. And I think that it gives us an idea of the importance of our mission, right? We are here, each one of us have the ability to impact the world in very, very powerful ways. We want these kids, we want these new generations to be able to do much better than what we are doing. Because right now the state of things is pretty fair, to be on the optimistic side, right? But it can be better. And the world's not going to change from one day to another. It's a process. It's going to take many, many reincarnations, but we'll get there. And the duty as we live here today is commit with our own inner transformation and commit to be there for our children. All right, very good. Thank you.